You promised you would marry her when you were rich. Someone sneered, loud enough for the whole street to hear. And the boy froze where he stood, barefoot on hot concrete, holding a paper bag that smelled of warm bread and kindness. The man who had become that boy stood years later at the edge of the same street. Older now, shoulders squared, eyes steady, watching a woman wipe her hands on a faded apron as if she were brushing dust from her past. The town did not know who he was yet. They only knew something was about to break. He had returned quietly. No parade, no announcement. Just the sound of his boots on a road that still remembered his hunger. She looked up, squinting into the light, and for a moment her breath caught. Time bent between them. The crowd did not notice. They were too busy whispering. Years ago, he had been nothing but a poor boy with a hollow stomach and a name people forgot. He had learned early how to disappear, how to stand still when anger passed him like a storm, how to smile even when shame burned his throat. He remembered the first day he met her. He had been 10, too thin, too quiet. His shirt hung loose and his shoes had holes that let rain kiss his toes. Hunger had followed him like a shadow. He had wandered behind the diner, hoping to find something left behind. When she saw him, she was younger then, but already carried the weight of the world in her eyes. She worked long hours, cleaning tables, washing dishes, doing everything others did not want to do. When she noticed him, she did not shout. She did not call anyone. She simply turned, wrapped leftover food in a clean napkin, and held it out. "Eat," she had said, soft and steady. That kindness saved him more times than he could count. Every afternoon she fed him. Bread, soup, sometimes fruit. She never asked questions, never made him feel small. She would smile and tell him to dream big, even when the world told him to stay small. One evening, when the sun bled orange across the sky and the air smelled of grease and dust, he had looked at her with all the hope a child could hold and said he would marry her one day. He would come back rich and make her life easy. People nearby had laughed, loud, cruel. A promise like that from a boy, like him, sounded like a joke. She did not laugh. She touched his head and said quietly that promises matter, but kindness matters more. That night stayed with him. Through every hard year that followed, his childhood ended early. His mother grew sick. Bills piled up. He worked odd jobs, slept little, ate less. The town never changed. It never made room for boys like him. So when he was old enough, he left. The military took him in when nothing else would. It gave him structure, discipline, and a reason to stand tall. Training was brutal. Days were long. Nights were cold. He learned how to push past pain, how to carry weight without complaint. He learned how silence could be stronger than words. War carved lines into his face. He saw friends fall. He smelled smoke and metal and fear. He held hands as life slipped away. He learned the sound of quiet after chaos, kind that rings in your ears and settles in your bones. In letters he never sent, he wrote about the girl who fed him, about her smile, about the promise. He told himself that if he survived, he would return, not to show off, not to prove anything, but to keep his word. When his service ended, he did not come home right away. He built a life slowly, worked harder than most, saved, invested, failed, tried again. He carried his past with him like a compass, always pointing back. Years turned into success. Not flashy, not loud, just steady growth built on discipline and patience. He helped others quietly, the way he once had been helped. He never forgot what hunger felt like. When he finally returned to the town, it barely recognized him. New paint on old buildings, same eyes, watching from behind curtains. Same silence when he walked by. The diner still stood, smaller than he remembered. The paint chipped. The sign faded. Inside, she still worked, older now, lines at the corners of her eyes, strength in the way she moved. People still overlooked her, still took her kindness for granted. That day, a group of men stood outside, mocking her as she closed up, saying she should be grateful for scraps, saying dreams were for other people. The crowd watched. No one stepped in. He stood across the street, feeling the old heat rise in his chest. The same heat he had felt as a boy when laughter cut deep. He did not shout. He did not rush. He simply crossed the road. The men laughed when they saw him. Another stranger. Another nobody. One of them made a joke about promises and fairy tales, about how poor boys never become rich men. He looked at them calmly. His silence unsettled them. He spoke only once. Some promises are quiet, but they are heavy. They scoffed, turned away. The woman looked at him then, really looked, and something in her face softened. Recognition flickered, fragile but real. He told her who he was, not with pride, not with drama, just truth. Her hands trembled. Tears filled her eyes. She stepped closer, searching his face for the boy she once knew. She found him there, still gentle, still steady. The town gathered. Whispers grew. Someone recognized his name. Someone else remembered his story. The mood shifted like a tide. News spread fast after that. About the man who had returned, about what he had built, about the foundation he ran that fed children, funded schools, lifted families out of hunger, about the soldier who never talked about his medals. The men who had mocked her stood back now, unsure, shrinking under a weight they could not name. He did not shame them. He did not raise his voice. He turned to her and asked if she would walk with him. She nodded, his tears spilling freely. They walked through the town together, past places heavy with memory. People watched. Some bowed their heads. Some wiped their eyes. Silence followed them, thick and respectful. Later, in the square where the boy had once been laughed at, he stopped. He looked at her and said the promise again, not as a boy, but as a man who understood its cost. I told you I would come back. I told you I would be better. I told you I would remember. She smiled through tears and answered with the same kindness she had always shown. You already kept your promise by becoming who you are. The town stood still. Even the wind seemed to pause. In that moment, respect filled the space where mockery once lived. The men who had laughed earlier stepped forward, heads low, words heavy with regret. Apologies came softly. He accepted them with a nod, not for himself, but for the healing of the place that had shaped him. That evening, lights glowed warm in the diner for the first time in years. Laughter returned, gentle and real. People shared food. Stories flowed. The woman who once fed a hungry boy now stood beside a man who fed a town. One of the children asked him how he stayed strong when people laughed at him. He answered without thinking, strength is not loud. It waits. It grows. Another asked why he came back, because kindness should never be forgotten. As night settled, the town felt different, lighter, as if an old weight had finally been lifted. The boy who had been invisible had returned visible, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it through years of quiet effort. The woman who had been overlooked stood honored, her kindness finally seen, and in the space between past and present, a promise fulfilled echoed louder than any cheer. Somewhere deep inside, the town learned a lesson it would carry forward. That dignity does not need permission. That silence can hold power. That the smallest acts of kindness can shape futures in ways no one expects. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from and what promise you believe in most. Subscribe for more stories that honor quiet strength, unseen sacrifice, and the power of keeping your word.